I'm not gonna lie. I had one of the most terrifying dreams ever. I dreamed that I died, and I saw my own funeral. This is what happened. It was a dark and stormy night. The wind was howling like a hungry wolf outside my window. Lightning flashed and thunder boomed. The power suddenly went out, and I found myself sitting in an old wooden coffin. I felt a deep sense of dread wash over me. Why was I in a coffin? What was happening? As I tried to scream for help, I realized that my mouth was completely dry. No sound came out. Then the lid of the coffin started to move. Oh my God, I thought. I'm being buried alive. I struggled against the heavy wood, but it was no use. The dream became a nightmare as I felt myself suffocating under the weight of the coffin. Then suddenly the world around me shifted. The coffin stopped moving, and I found myself standing at the edge of a large crowd of people. They were all staring at me with pitying looks on their faces. I couldn't see their faces clearly, but I could feel their eyes burning into me. They were whispering amongst themselves, and I strained to listen in on their conversation. "There goes poor John," someone said, their voice heavy with sympathy. "He had such a bright future ahead of him, too," another person added. "It's a tragedy, but accidents happen. At least he didn't suffer for long." As their words reached my ears, I realized with a growing sense of horror that they were talking about me. But how could they be talking about me if I was standing right here in front of them? Confused and scared, I tried to call out to them, but my voice seemed to be stuck in my throat. I wanted to ask them what they were doing, why they were gathered here, but no sound came out. Suddenly I felt a strong hand grip my shoulder and turn me around. I wanted to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. When I finally managed to turn my head, the sight that greeted me made my blood run cold. Standing before me was my own dead body lying inside a coffin. It was covered in a white sheet, and two men in black suits were carrying it towards a large hole that had been dug in the ground. I watched in horror as they lowered the coffin into the grave. I wanted to call out to them, to tell them that it was a mistake, but my voice wouldn't come out. I was trapped inside my own body, unable to communicate with the people around me. As the coffin disappeared into the darkness of the grave, I felt a deep sense of despair wash over me. I was trapped inside my body, unable to move or speak. And as the grave started to be filled with dirt, I knew that I was truly trapped forever. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't budge. I was frozen in place, watching in horror as the dirt covered the coffin. Then I woke up. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was dark, and for a moment I couldn't remember where I was or what had happened. But then the memory of the dream came flooding back to me, and I was filled with a sense of relief and gratitude to be alive. I looked around the room and saw that everything was normal. My phone was on the nightstand next to me, and the clock said 3 a.m. I lay back down and tried to go back to sleep, but the dream had shaken me up and I couldn't get back to sleep. So I got out of bed and went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. As I drank the water, I thought about the dream. What did it mean? Was it just a nightmare, or was there something more to it? I couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The dream had been so real, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was going to happen. I went back to my room and got on my phone. I scrolled through social media, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept going back to the dream. I tried to distract myself by watching a movie, but even that didn't help. The more I tried to push the dream out of my mind, the more it seemed to stick with me. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about the dream. I told my friends about it, and they tried to reassure me that it was just a dream and that nothing bad was going to happen. But I couldn't help but feel uneasy. I went about my daily routine, but I couldn't focus on anything. The dream had shaken me up and I couldn't seem to get back to normal. I tried to tell myself that it was just a dream and that nothing bad was going to happen, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. As the days went by, I started to become more and more anxious. I couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was going to happen. I tried to go about my life as normal, but I couldn't focus on anything. The dream had left me feeling traumatized, and I couldn't seem to get back to normal. I started having nightmares every night, and I couldn't sleep well anymore. I became so anxious that I started to feel physical symptoms like a rapid heartbeat and shortness of breath. I was so worried that something bad was going to happen that I started to feel like I was losing control of my life. I decided to seek professional help, and I started going to therapy to talk about the dream and the anxiety that it had caused me. The therapist helped me to understand that the dream was just a dream, and that it didn't mean that something bad was going to happen. But the anxiety didn't go away. One day while I was walking, I saw a group of people gathered around something. I walked over and saw that they were looking at a coffin that was being carried by two men in black suits. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. As I watched the coffin being carried away, I felt a sense of panic rise within me. I tried to tell myself that it was just a coincidence and that nothing bad was going to happen, but my anxiety got the better of me. I started to hyperventilate, and I felt like I was going to faint. I ran home as fast as I could, and I locked myself in my room. I was shaking and crying, and I couldn't stop thinking about the coffin. I called my therapist and I told her what had happened. She told me to stay calm and that I needed to face my fear in order to overcome it. So I took a deep breath and I went back out into the world. Every time I saw a coffin, I would have a panic attack. But I refused to let this fear control my life. I started going out again, but I always avoided the cemetery and the funeral home. One day I decided that I needed to face my fear head on. I went to the cemetery and I stood by the gates. I took a deep breath and walked inside. I walked past the rows and rows of headstones, and I finally stopped at a coffin that was being carried by two men in black suits. I watched as the mourners gathered around the coffin, and I felt a sense of sadness come over me. I realized that death is a part of life, and that we all have to face it eventually. I felt a sense of peace come over me, and I realized that I did and need to be afraid. From that day on, I never had another nightmare about my own funeral. And I never saw another coffin without feeling a sense of peace. Watch. If you ever have a nightmare about your own funeral, don't be afraid. It's just a dream. Nothing bad will happen to you. Just face your fears and move on. Thank you for listening, and please share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more content.